Hello, Yes But Why listeners. This is your host, Amy Jordan. Thanks so much for joining me. Welcome to Yes But Why, episode 324, my interview with Austin improviser Maddie Cordovano. But first, let's talk about how Yes But Why podcast is sponsored by Audible. You know Audible. It's the app everybody's using to listen to books. My mom used to listen to books on CDs in the car when I was growing up, but now there's an app for that. Reading is out. Listening is in. My mom was always ahead of the curve. Audible is a user-friendly, one-stop shop for podcasts, books, and cool new music releases. It's definitely worth your time. So much entertainment, all read to you by talented voice artists. So go now to audibletrial.com/yesbutwhy to sign up and get your account today. It's the right thing to do. So now let's talk about my guest this week. This week on Yes But Why, I have my interview with Maddie Cordovano, the newest Conservatory Director at Fallout Theater in Austin. In our conversation, we talked about corporate improv workshops, creative writing, and community building. Listen in to meet the newest member of the Fallout Theater staff. I now present to you Yes But Why episode 324, Maddie Cordovano on making up stories and bringing people together. Enjoy. I'm Amy Jordan, and this is
Yes, but why?
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 This is the Yes But Why podcast.
Maddie. When you were a kid, what was the way that you were playing with your siblings, if you have them, or, neighborhood friends? What were the games you were playing?
Yeah, I have a couple different answers to that. The one thing I think about me is I never have like one thing. People will be like, what's your favorite movie? And I'm like, well, I don't do favorites. I don't have like bests or singles. So I'll give you a multifaceted answer, which is that with my brother, I played rough. So I grew up wrestling and getting thrown around a lot. And then usually playing the victim, which I know now it's not a good way to be, but when my brother wasn't around, I was one of those kids that was always just super happy to be in a corner by myself. I didn't like dolls or Barbies or anything. They scared me a lot, but I had a lot of animal toys and stuffed animals, figurines of cows and donkeys. And I was always totally happy by myself, just doing voices and creating worlds and getting super lost in my own imagination. And then when it came to my friends, it was a lot of being outside and building things. So I was a pretty active kid. I grew up in Idaho, so like I said, outside a lot. So I don't know if that's different or the same, or that's just, my journey.
No, everybody's got a different way of going about it. I find it fascinating that you... the first thing you acknowledge about yourself is the idea that you wear a lot of hats and that like you're various different people. I think that creative people have that ability that some other people don't. I always say stuff like this, but thank God my entire audience is just other creative people, because I'm like, listen, guys, we're amazing, and the rest of the people are like, ugh, how do they even live? But that's okay, because they're not really listening, so it's okay.
Right. We all agree with you.
Yeah, my whole audience is like, we are special. You're right.
That does sound like us.
We are geniuses. But I feel like there's a lot of, with creatives, there's a lot of different stories that are going around in your head. And like, we're never just picking one. I got like 6 different things going on in my head right now. Like I'm personally writing like 3 different stories at once. I thought, I will never be able to do that. How could a person? You got to be focused on one or the other. But just recently, I've been working on 3 different things where it's like one day I'm like, what am I in the mood for? Okay, and I'll work on something. And then I'm like, I can't write this tomorrow. It's like, how did I keep all those ideas straight in my head? I don't know. But I think it's just a matter of like sort of the compartmentalization of creative kids. You have so many ideas. What am I going to do with them all? Well, I'll just put them in little boxes in my head. Some of them I'll play with my friends, some with my brother, but mostly they're for me.
Mm-hmm.
I like that.
It's
Were you doing shows?
When I was a kid?
Yeah.
Yes, I did lip syncs. I did dance. I did anytime I could get anybody to sit down and be quiet for a few minutes, I was going to be in front of them, making them watch what I was doing. I did actual theater. I did sleepaway comedy camp. I did all sorts of stuff.
Oh man, awesome. Yeah, you were in it. I cut you off. You were going to say something else. Do you remember what it was?
Yeah, I was going to say that it's awesome that you say that, like, that you have boxes in your head for all sorts of different things going on, because sometimes I'll say to people, like, I have to do this thing because it's been in my head, and if I don't get it out, like, it will just mold in there and start rotting. And one of my friends the other day was like, you should be a project manager. Like, what are you doing saying you have these like compartmentalized creative things that you literally can't forget about until you do them? She was like, that could like be your whole job, which I had never thought about. But it on the other side, sometimes as a creative, I wonder what it would be like if I had less things going on in my head and I was a little bit more content doing less stuff all the time. Would probably be a nice break. I
don't know if those people really exist. I hear tell of that, but even my non-creative friends are kind of frenzied with various other things. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. But instead of thinking of like, you know, that dwarf love story that's been rolling around in your head, and then also like, but what about that sci-fi novel I was also thinking about writing? Instead of these fun stories, they're like, okay, but how can I make sure that the numbers match in my accounting job? So like, you know, it's like, yeah, people have different things, you know, that they're putting their, every one of us as adults make decisions about like what we're going to focus on, right? And at a certain point, you get to an age where there's nobody else telling you what it is that you should focus on. So you get to decide. Some people never realize that they can decide, but I find creatives generally are aware of their independent thought. And, you know, then we can create all sorts of different things. Now, the project manager idea, that is pretty solid, because one thing that people never think about is how our creative skills are helpful in the quote unquote real world. I say quote unquote because we all know it's not real out there. But at the same time, like if you want a job doing something that's, you know, working in an office, but you're a project manager, yeah, you do need those skills that probably most of the people in that office don't have at all. Mm-hmm. Like, yeah, it's crazy how we discount these skills that we have as if it's like, well, I guess the only thing I can do with them is make a play. Which is great, and I enjoy that. But it's like, no, that skill you have is helpful for so many different things.
Totally. And like just recently in the last year and a half, my partner was like, wait, you're not putting any of this on your resume? And I was like, no, I'm not going to put that I'm like an improviser and that I teach comedy. And he was like, wait, that's huge. Like those are great skills that you could use in a job that a lot of people don't bring to the table. And I was just blown away. I was like, oh, what? Okay. Duh.
There are so many years of human history / our lives when everyone tells us that our creative thoughts and feelings are unimportant and that we should push them aside to get a better job and do something that's more productive. So I don't think it's at all a surprise that you would discount your own amazing skills, because for your whole life, probably everyone else has been discounting those amazing skills. Like, it's only very recently that putting improv or comedy on your resume would help. I've definitely had it go both ways, right? Yeah. That being said, if you put improv and comedy on your website and it doesn't help, don't work there. Like, that seems like a terrible office. Don't go there. If they're like, What does she do in her spare time? Oh, she does comedy. Oh, not in this office. Like, we don't want to work there. This one's horrible. What?
I know.
Though the flip side is going in for every interview and they ask you to tell a joke.
Yeah, it is funny because now at the job I'm at, I don't, not my comedy job, my other job, I don't tell people I do comedy because it comes with some risk involved.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I've gotten that for sure. I like saying it on the resume, and then like when I'm talking to HR, I'll be like, "Hey, don't mention that to anybody in the office, okay?" And they're like, "Why not? They'll think it's so great." And I was like, "Yeah, well, let me ease into it. They'll figure it out."
Yes.
They'll talk to me 3 seconds in, they're going to get it. Like, they're not like, she seems dull. No. Like, let them just be like, oh, I get it. She's the funny gal. Good. Yeah. Don't ask me for a joke. It's never been
Maddie,
good at
wait,
that.
Do you do comedy? Because you're funny. And I'm like, yeah, I do. You got it out of me.
You're like, yes, I do, but no, you cannot come to any shows.
Especially my boss. No, you cannot.
Woof. Oh, man. I have 100% been at level 1 recitals where the entire office comes to support like the one guy that's in the class. And you can tell like they're all like sitting together and they're like, Johnny, it's going to be so great. Oh, he's so funny. And they're like not sure how to react because improv's, weird. And then at the end, they're like, you did great, John. You're super great. Good job, man. I maybe get one more student out of that office, and then we never hear from them again, including Johnny. He's never coming back. But
don't let people watch you do improv until you've done it for at least a year. Just hold off.
Realistically, I'm starting to realize that maybe it should only be other improvisers as audiences for that first year for all of us.
Yeah, or family members. Family members will never leave you. They can't.
Yes, sure. If your mom's the kind that sits in the front row and laughs at everything you say, bring her. We'll take her.
Yes, please bring her to my show too, because I need that.
Oh my God. Yeah, I love that. In fact, that was my favorite part was going and trying to see who like sitting in the back and looking at the audience and trying to see who they came for in my class, like see how they're reacting. They're like, oh, I see. Okay. That's his so-and-so's girlfriend. Okay.
You can always tell as soon as they come out on stage and there's that extra clap.
Oh man, I do love it though. So I suppose I'm definitely a good person to be in that first round of watching improvisers. I laugh at even the slightest attempt at a joke. I'm all sitting there in the front row like, you're doing great. Look at you guys talking.
We need those people. That's great. I wish I could say I'm the same, but unfortunately I am not. I am a hard laugh. It takes a lot.
Good. No, that's wonderful. That means they got to earn it with you. With me, it's just a throwaway. They're like, she laughs at anything. What does it matter if she laughs? But it doesn't matter because I just stay there very excited in the front row, big eyes wide. You guys. It's all right. I'll take it. It's a good path for me. It's my way. I love this idea that, also, I love the idea that you have this other job and you're like, listen, we're not talking about this other job. This other job doesn't need to know anything about comedy. Like, it would cause trouble. I dig that. But your friends are right. For the next job, whatever job it might be, adding comedy and improv to the resume could really be helpful. Definitely.
Yeah. I wish like I could just get hired as like the office morale person and I could just go to work every day to like boost people's morales and not tell like stupid jokes, just to be like somebody who's fun to be around and to help lift the mood. That would be the awesome direction that I would want to move in, but we're not there yet. Corporate America is a few years behind that being a position. So project management with some comedy influence might be my next move.
I like your idea for a job. I think we should work on it. Let's start developing and convincing people that this is a job that needs to happen. I think it could help. HR departments all around. Like if you had one, because HR departments have a tendency to be a little combative. Like when you meet HR, you're like, are they looking at me funny? But if you had like the nice HR gal who's like swinging around, making sure everybody's okay, I feel like maybe they might actually tell her stuff like, hey, that guy's weird. Can we talk about how weird he is? And as opposed to, a lot of HRs where, you don't feel comfortable talking to people. Being pleasant and lifting people up might actually improve overall performance. I say this like corporate America's listening.
Well, aren't they always? And I agree with you. I mean, a lot of comedy is creating a safe space. So like I could just go around creating a safe space, getting people's trust built up, and also I could be a professional class clown, which is truly the dream.
My favorite is going and teaching corporate improv workshops and essentially like not working in the office, but like popping in maybe once a year with a company and then like just being wacky and fun with them for a little while and then leave. Because sometimes I wonder if maybe these offices couldn't function with as pleasant a vibe as we want them to have. Like it just, there has to be a sort of painfulness or whatever. Sales is hard, you have to uphill battle, that kind of thing or whatever. But I've definitely been in rooms where you go in and you go to teach the corporate improv, and I don't mind the opening eye roll. I'll take it. When the first thing that they're like, all right, ladies and gentlemen, we're all here together. We're going to like hang out and bond. And so we hired this teacher to teach us improv. And half the room is like, oh God, what? No. And I just smile real big like, you think you're not going to have fun, but you are. Okay, let's do this, you guys. And it's like the biggest leap of charmer that you've got to be. But they have that like feeling that they can take back with them and enjoy. And maybe it's not all the time, but like you get to kind of convince them. Or even if they're not totally convinced, sometimes like maybe they're not totally convinced in front of the whole crowd, but you get a little like eye with somebody and you're like, oh, you get it. You know what's up. Like I see deep down inside you have a kindness in that heart. I appreciate that you're top salesman, so you can't show it, but I see it.
Yeah, well, I give you props for that because any corporate workshop I've done has been maybe a handful of people who are like, yeah, this is fun, getting the joy out of it, and the rest are just hating it. Do not want to be there.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I'm like, all right, I can level with you. I won't make you, speak first at every game. It's okay.
Oh, man. You're very kind because I go straight for them. They don't want to do it. They're my first. I'm all like, Johnny, come on, say something. What are you going to say? You want to be a tiger? Let's be a tiger, Johnny. Let's do it. What are we going to do? Oh, no? What? Okay. What's your favorite animal, Johnny? You don't like animals? That's fine.
Yeah,
like
you would clearly be better than me because I'd be more of like, oh, you're not cool with this? Cool. I can hang back with you and we can like watch the rest of them for a minute. We can just kick it. That's fine. I can... I would be not as positive. So you got me there.
Well, you seem very cool. And that's probably why you can be cool and maintain. I'm not really cool. I'm fun. I'm your wacky aunt. And everyone on the earth thinks I remind them of someone that they worked with one time. So that's fine. That's the vibe I give off. That's what like reaction I get from people. So I just roll with it. I know that's what they're thinking. It's all good. And then I just like, I'm their crazy aunt who's like giving them wacky advice they're never going to take. What do you guys? You don't love your lives? You don't love everything? Oh, come on. And even if they disagree with me, they still like are pleasantly, enjoying my wackiness as I dance around the room and try to make the CEO say something silly. Like,
that's awesome.
Well, it's the benefit of being consistently uncool your whole life. You just kind of like be yourself and like people like you or they don't. And then it's all right. That's another thing about improv is that like improv has a tendency to be be, seen as a little uncool. And I'm okay with that. I'll take it.
I'm actually not that cool. I'm actually a super goof. I just have a chill vibe that I think comes off as cool, but really I'm not. I'm a goon.
Well, good. You can connect with the cool kids, and you can be funny and wacky with the weirdos like me.
Yeah, I try really hard with the cool kids, and then really I fit in with the others.
So you talked about how when you were younger, you were just like soaking up all the performance opportunities. You were doing tons of stuff, all the camps, all that. Did you go to school for theater as well, or did you take the smart and professional route to get a degree in something else that's gonna, quote, make you money?
Neither.
Great.
Neither. Yes, as I was saying earlier, I have a hard time having like one thing top of mind, so I tend to jump around a lot. So I actually went to school for journalism, switched to creative writing, and then found myself studying abroad and ended up graduating with a degree in Spanish because I just knocked a bunch of classes out while I lived abroad, and it seemed like the quickest route to getting my degree done. So nope, I did not take the money route or the artistic route, which it is what it is, but comedy, acting, all of that it's always a thing I do on the side. I wish it was something I put at the forefront a little bit more, but I was always doing it in some facet. So I wrote, helped write and acted in a play in Spain, fully in Spanish. That was one of the most fun things I'd ever done and one of my proudest moments. And I have zero proof that it happened. I have one blurry picture. I can't explain to anybody what it was about, but yeah.
I feel like that entire idea, that entire experience prepped you for a career in improv, because for the rest of, your improv career, you'll be like, there was this great show. Oh, you'll never see it. No, I can't even explain to you why it was funny. Everyone loved it, but all I can say is the chicken died. There's nothing else I can say to explain the whole thing. Everyone loved it. If I said it to somebody who was there, they'd laugh. They're like, yeah, okay, I guess.
That's pretty close to how I explain most everything in my life. So yes, exactly.
You had to be there.
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, I think the fact that you wrote and performed in a play in Spain in Spanish and they didn't kick you out, I feel like that's a win. Like, your friends there were cool with it. Nobody was like, what are these things she's saying on stage? Like, you were speaking properly. Great. It was a proper creative performance. Awesome. And you made it yourself even better. You know what I mean? Like, regardless of if anybody has ever, I'm trying to think like how many of the things that I've ever made as an artist are actually things that I can like draw upon or like show you a photo of. Very few. Mm-hmm. Very few. Well, it's not about telling other people though. It's about building up your own, what you want to learn out of it. When you were in Spain, what were you trying to do like with this play? Were you thinking like, oh, I'll stay around and do more plays? Or had you written and performed in other plays but in English and you were like, you know what, let's just do it in Spain? Like, how did it even occur to you to do that when you were there?
Well, when I was a kid, I acted a lot, so I did theater a lot. So when I was in Spain, I was doing all the regular classes, racking up the credits so I could graduate, but they had an acting class. And some of the other people in my like cohort who were also learning Spanish, we all decided to take the acting class. So it was a bunch of non-native speakers, which made it a little bit easier so we could, break down if we needed to. But I always need an outlet. So I was like, here we are, acting class. I'm in Spain. I'm learning Spanish. I love it. Yeah, we're going to do it. Like, no questions asked. Outside of it just being a really good time and me being just the most creepy they did this old man makeup on me that was hilarious, and I looked ridiculous. And outside of that being just a really good time, that was just another kind of mark in the stone for me to be like, no matter where I am and no matter what I'm doing, I know that for the rest of my life, I'm going to find my outlet. And like, whether it's doing an improv show or just being a goof or signing up for a random whatever or creating a play, I know that I will always do that kind of stuff, no matter where I live, how old I am, whatever. It's just like, it's just my thing.
Yeah. Do you think that you figuring out this at the moment was like a defining moment for you as a creative, you know, having accomplished this with so much, it's a lot to do in another country, in another language, like to make it happen. Was this like a hurdle that you felt like once you went over it, you were like, yeah, this is the kind of person I am?
Yeah, because I went from doing so much theater as a kid, and then I did a lot of improv in high school, and then I kind of dropped off. And this is my third year of college, so I was getting towards the end, and I kind of had taken a little bit of a break. I think that was kind of the fire that relit, and I was like, why am I not doing more of this all the time? And I came back from that trip and joined an improv troupe. And so I didn't plan on it, and I honestly didn't even really look back on it being a big moment, but I think it was. And I think that's why I love to tell that story, even though I can't like put it into words, is because it was such a huge moment to just be like doing comedy in another language overseas randomly for a group of 45 people. I don't know. Like, it was great.
Yeah. Plus, so brave. I mean, like, you and I both know hundreds of people who are too afraid to do comedy in English, never mind in Spanish.
Yeah.
Like, and it'd be one thing if you did it in Spanish here. You know, there's some forgiveness, but not in Spain. Oh, no. No. Yeah. You gotta really do it up. So you guys, like, I also, by the way, love the idea that you had full old man makeup. Like, what was your character? Do you remember? Like, what was the story?
Basically it was the whole thing we wrote around puns. So, about words in Spanish that sound like their English counterparts, but aren't. And so I was a doctor, and I wasn't creepy. I just was talking to a patient, and a lot of medical terms sound like something else in Spanish than they are in English. Is that the right way to say it? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I was this old man doctor with a cane who like hobbled around and sat at my desk and was talking to a patient. And every time she would say something, I thought it was something else, and I would just like die laughing, but I was laughing at the wrong thing. And so the joke was really on me the whole time. And I honestly can't even remember like one example, but it was so fun. And I love playing male characters, especially old male characters. So that was just like peak moment for me. But usually in improv, you know, you don't have props and you don't dress up. So it was so fun to, have huge, massive wrinkles, a gray wig. I was wearing like a doctor's coat and this large cane, just ripping it up in Spanish, I guess.
Oh, man. It sounds like the kind of thing now you're like, man, I'm so sad I don't have photos from that event. But I feel like maybe, you know, like 20-year-old you was like, burn these photos. Don't let anyone see me in this old man makeup.
I would have loved it. Somewhere there's a DVD out there, and one day I'm going to find it, and I'm going to just love watching that.
Put it directly on the internet, and you're like, guys, I'm amazing. Look at this.
Worse, I'm going to have all my friends over and make them watch it live with me. And I want to watch their reactions.
Oh my god, I love the idea of like you in front of them, like with your eyes wide, looking from person to person. You like it? Yeah?
Yep.
I know no one of you know any Spanish words, but you guys are into it, right?
Right? And then I'm going to do it in English. I'll translate and I'll make them watch me do it in English again.
This is a formative moment, right? This is like right where, you know, you realized you wanted to be silly, wild, wacky gal. You're going to like accept this in your adult life now. You're in college. You can do it. And you're in Europe. Look at you. You're like nailing it with this event. It makes total sense that you would have like gone back into creative stuff at this point. And, you know, I've talked to a lot of people. The college break happens for a ton. Most people are trying to find some sort of job that they can do. And while most of us don't figure out that we can use the creative skills that we have on jobs, like we've been talking about, they, you know, they're just trying to figure out what the right thing for them to do is. And unfortunately, neither our culture nor Spain's is very, you know, none of the parents are very much like, yeah, be an actor. That seems like a great career. So unfortunately, most of us feel like we have to do other things. As far as your, you know, you mentioned that you've done like a ton of different, you know, you like to juggle a lot of different things. You have a lot of different interests. After you came back and got into improv, did you get involved in a lot of different creative pursuits at that point? Or did you just really like improv from when you had done it and it had all the variety you were looking for just in and of itself?
Yeah, coming from somebody who did theater and loved it, I fell even harder for improv. And so I went deep into that route. I've done sketch along the way, and I love sketch as well. I like to write. I wrote a solo show eventually, but improv, it was and is still my main vein for sure. And that's what I've invested majority of my last 13 to 15 years doing as much as I can.
Awesome. So is it 13 to 15 years since that moment when you came back from Spain?
I actually started, one of my other origin stories is when I was Peter Pan in the play Peter Pan. And I remember I had 99 lines. And I was like, how am I going to remember all these lines? And I came out on stage and my Wendy did not come out. And so I started improvising and it went over so freaking well that I was like, what is this? This is super fun. I'm out here by myself and I'm crushing and I don't even know what I'm doing. And that I was like 14 years old. So then I did some improv in high school and I was like, yeah, this is my thing. I love this. And then kind of some life things happened, took a break. And after the troupe in college, was just like, I gotta try to do this for real, for sure.
Where did you start in the for real, for sure improv?
I moved to Chicago in 2013 and fully invested myself in Second City and IO at the exact same time. And I did both programs and worked at both theaters and basically immersed myself beyond recognition. No, I just was deep in both.
Yeah. Awesome. The reason why I asked about where you like went for real is because you said it in such a way that it was like, I figured out that I wanted to do improv and I went to the Mecca. So I was like, okay, she probably went to Chicago, but let's find out. Like, yep, there we go. Chicago. Now, how did you find out that Chicago was the place?
So the improv team I was on in my last year of college, one of them tried to get Sharna Halpern, who used to own IO, out to teach a class. And I was like, who's that? And he started telling me about IO and about Sharna. And I was like, oh, wow. And then she was going to come, but then she didn't. And I'd known about Second City for a while, just from loving comedy, but I didn't know a lot. I just knew that if I wanted to do it, from what I had heard, well, Second City actually came to my hometown once and I saw their show. And then I did a workshop with them the next day. And I was like, what is this? Like, okay. So piecing all that together, I was like, okay, well, I could go to Chicago and I could go to IO and I could tell this Sharna lady that she was supposed to come teach my improv troupe. And she didn't, which I did. So, yeah.
How'd that go?
Actually, not bad. And then I ended up working for her for years and we actually became buds.
And you were like, it makes total sense why she didn't come. You're
Every year
like,
I'd be
I was
like-
organizing her and she just, wasn't going to
Every
work
year I
out.
would remind her that I was that young kid who came and was like, hey, you didn't come teach my troupe. And she was like, what? She never remembered. She's like, I don't know what you're talking about.
Can you imagine the number of people that she has met over the years, though? Like, just the hordes of, like, hundreds of people. Like, I can't even wrap my mind around the, like, sheer just sort of, like, community connection that, she had going on for so many years. And Lord knows, how she's connecting now, but yeah, that's great. How did you get into work for her? Or were you always like getting involved in administrative stuff in the theaters that you wanted to get involved in, just like interning, or are you just like a good organizer?
Yeah, I am a great organizer, actually. It's weird. I wanted to go and fully immerse myself, and somehow I ended up on this path of working at both theaters because I didn't have I just didn't have the financial stability to lean on anybody really outside myself. So I was like, well, I have to work, and I'm at these places. And at IO, I was an intern, and then I became a host. And then one night they were like, Maddie, you're really doing a good job. Could you fill in for the house manager? And I was like, yeah. And then they're like, do you want to be a house manager? And I was like, play here on certain nights and work here on other nights. Great. And then Second City was like, we need a house manager. And I was like, hey, I do this at IO and I could just bike here on my opposite nights. And they were like, cool. And then I was still taking classes at Second City, and I just somehow ended up doing both. And, a lot of people served at these places while performing, and I was doing the crazy thing of managing at both and performing. And sometimes I worry if I lost sight of the performing a little bit, but I had to make money. So
Yeah.
I had to do what I had to do.
Plus, we all have our own skills, like, I don't know about you. I'm more of an organizer than I am. I have never been able to be a waiter. I've been a hostess at plenty of restaurants, but I've never been a waiter. I just don't have the, while I can convince corporate offices to do improv, I cannot convince restaurant patrons to enjoy themselves. So it was not my forte. And I feel like, that's just the way I did the same thing. You know what I mean? Like, everywhere I ever worked at a theater, I'd be like, is there any side admin work I can help you with so I can just continue to hang out here all the time? Mm-hmm. And nobody wants to do admin work or manage. Nobody wants to do that. Talk to people. So if you're into it and that's a skill that you have, it gets you in the door all over the place.
Yeah, it did. I think the only thing that hurt me is that like I got promoted and at IO, and then, they brought me on as a house manager at Second City, and I was really good at my jobs, but I was became such a manager at those places that I wasn't seen as like a thriving performer, which is, it's just the way that it is. I guess maybe at that time I was seen as better at working than performing, which could have been true, but who knows?
Yeah. It's always hard to kind of figure out how communities function. I feel like I've learned a lot in the past couple years. During the pandemic, I feel like there were a lot of online discussions about the way improv communities were run and different ways that we sort of all told each other were going on. And we're like, wait, your people don't do this? Wait, you don't have to do this at your school? And then once everyone kind of started talking to one another, it's sort of changed the way that people are looking at it. But I don't know, to bring back you were saying like you had to have a job, so you ended up getting involved in this, but the only reason why they would only want you to be a manager is because you were great at being a manager and because their bottom line is money, which is unfortunate. The bottom line is not the best art or the best show even. It's like, how do we make the people who want to pay more stuff? And so unfortunately, like, even if you were the best performer, if the audience didn't come to the shows you went to, they just pick the one that they did go to, because at the end of the day, it's about making, money, as opposed to who's doing the best show and how does that work, right? I mean, I don't know. It's hard when it's a business, and a lot of, I find, like, show decisions are made on, what's going to make the most money. And I get it. Theater's not cheap to make, and nor is maintaining a brick and mortar of any kind. But I mean, all that is to say, clearly your managerial skills were amazing, and those were the things that they really loved. And I'm sure that you were a great performer, but they just were like, we could make more money with her in the front, because people are happy to see her when they walk in.
Yeah. I don't know, maybe. And yeah, it's a really good point. And it's interesting to think about, because I think it's my only kind of regret when I chose to leave is my like work resume was super strong, and people love seeing that I managed at both those places, but my improv resume might have struggled a bit. And but also here I am, I'm going to be the conservatory director at Fallout, but you won't see me on, some of the biggest shows in town. So this is just like my path. I think I'm kind of back of the house in an interesting way, getting in there, getting my hands in there the way that I can. And that's, maybe I have to stop fighting it and just roll with it.
Yeah.
Not that it's not great. It's just not how I envisioned it.
No, I totally understand. I like couldn't understand more. I've had all these jobs. Like, I've been admin in 1,000 things, and I was a stage manager in New York City. I came very close to assistant stage managing on a Broadway show, and I got this interview, and I went to the interview, and then when I left the interview, I was like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to be a stage manager for my whole life. I would like to be on stage sometimes. And it could have changed my whole life. I mean, like, I opted not to do this job, and it's crazy. People are like, you what? I'm like, yeah, I wanted to be on stage. And they're like, but you never made any money on stage. And I was like, you're right. I didn't. But, I feel like there are times when you got to put all your energy into the creative, like building up shows, writing things, creating projects, doing, writing whole plays in Spanish. And then sometimes you've got to go with other skills that you have, and people with admin skills who also like being in part of theaters are like diamonds in the rough. Like, the reason why people want us to do this is because no one wants to do this but us. So if we say, yeah, I'll run that, they're like, what? Great. No one wants to run this, because, we can find the adventure in it. And even the performance in it. Like, even when I was talking about the corporate improv thing, that whole thing's a show for me. That whole thing is a show for an audience that doesn't want me there. And I'm like, who's going to have a good time? You guys are. What's going to happen here? We're all going to have the most fun is what's going to happen. Like, it's just me performing. But, I mean, what was it? Like 2 days ago or something, I spoke at my kid's school for something. And I said something in front of 40 people, and I hadn't felt more alive in forever. I was like, yes. Yeah, I love that. Mm-hmm. And it's just, it's like little moments where you can, you'll be able to talk to entire classes or groups of people, and you're like, a high status person in this theater, and yeah, maybe you're not in all the shows, but I don't know. I'll admit that I am deeply biased, conservatory director to tell you, like, yo, you're super important. And like everything that you do matters to hundreds of people, such that they're going to have an amazing experience. And it's not going to weigh upon them because you've helped them get in there and do that, right? Even you come off with great confidence. You come off with, I loved that when we were first talking about doing theater, you're like, oh yeah, I did so much theater. And then it's like, I just had to find a place to do it. I understand that. Like, I get being like, no, this is who I am. I'll do it again. Maybe I'm not doing it right now, but I'll do it again. Mm-hmm. But even the confidence that comes off of you inspires people, like they'll come in and be like, I don't know if I should take a class. And you're like, but classes are fun. And like, look, hang out with me. I'm cool. You're cool. Let's be cool together. And that confidence that you have inherently is like part of the special sauce and like superpower that you have that like actually turns being the conservatory director into like, I don't know, the best role you could play in any play. You know what I mean?
Well, thank you. That's very nice.
Yeah. I mean, it's absolutely necessary. And I have been in Austin for 12 years now. And I've seen a lot of artistic directors and a lot of conservatory directors and learned a lot from different people, from my own experience, from other people's experiences. And at the end of the day, I mean, as long as you just like care about other creative people, then you're going to be fine. Right. And
totally.
I can see from our chats, even like about the other people that you are working with and like other projects that you've had, that it's like, I want other people to have fun. You want other people to have fun. Like,
totally.
It's the beauty of doing creative stuff is that you get to appreciate the little gems you have inside of you. When you get a laugh from the audience, you're like, that was me. They liked it. Or like when you come up with like a cool new way to teach something and somebody goes, whoa, I never thought of it that way. You're like, oh, yeah, nailing it. Mm-hmm. Like that kind of stuff. I mean, admin doesn't get as much credit as it deserves ever, but it's super, super great and super important. And like, clearly you have the, I'm going to say cojones for it.
Hey-o.
I'm sorry. I felt silly even saying it, but it felt right.
That I do. I appreciate it. So yeah. No, it means a lot. It's super nice to hear that and hear somebody else kind of see it from that perspective. And at the end of the day, I can't fight that I'm super organized and also a little bit pushy and tend to end up in a leadership role. It's all good. And the one thing that's hard with the whole creative world is there's also this major line of competition, and the one thing I don't want people to feel is bad. And a lot of the times I felt bad, and I see people feel bad. And I want to create a space where that's so not what it's about. And it's so much more about the other great things. So that's my whole intent.
Oh, yeah. Well, improv's the perfect art for that. Mm-hmm. Improv is just exactly right for that kind of vibe. I mean, there is, as we were talking earlier, improv has a tendency to be seen as a bit uncool. But in my mind, I think the uncoolness has to do with the effort to be kind, has to do with the idea that it's like, no, the worst thing you can do is disrespect your partner's idea. That's right. The worst thing you could do. They're like, oh, the worst thing I could do isn't to say no. I mean, if you're saying no to this person's idea, but if you directly, and we all see, you reject whatever they say in whatever way you do it, it looks terrible. And you look terrible. And none of us can save you in this moment, right?
Yeah.
Oh, man. I have definitely had a number of students, both on stage at a show and in class, where they like directly just like, no, not dealing with it, not doing this idea that you have. And I'm all like, okay, all right, we got to talk about this. Because at the end of the day, it's just about accepting other people and going with whatever happens. I mean, and don't get me wrong, if somebody brings up something horrific and you're like, whoa, not doing a scene about that, a sweet quick edit and then something else is easy to fix, but it's not usually that. It's usually like, I think I'm cooler than this person, and so I'm not going to do their idea because like my ideas are better. And you're like, you've just made yourself look bad. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, like, I mean, being cool or, trying to be cool, whatever we want to call it, being too good it's all insecurity. And, improv, saying like, I do improv, has this weird connotation it's kind of goofy and kind of lame. But if you tell somebody that you're a comedian or that you do comedy or that you are funny and get paid for it, then it's super sick. People are like, what? How do you do that? Well, that's so cool. Like I could never do that. And it's like, it shouldn't matter that the way that I do it is to make everybody feel okay and back them up and do goofy stuff and sometimes dumb, excuse my language, shit. And we're all just like on the same page. I don't know why there's this weird connotation of that's lame when really it's great. And then, there's other versions of comedy where they hate on people of all different kinds and say jokes that are terrible. And it's like, oh, those people are sick. And I'm like, I don't get it. It's all backwards. But I think we're just still stuck in that moment and of how things have been for a really long time. And we'll slowly teach people that being goofy and kind is actually the cooler way to be.
Maybe. I find it interesting in what we were talking about a moment before this, though, that that there's this competition, that's inherent to it, because right now, even now, improv's getting people gigs. Improv's getting people roles. Improv has gotten probably most of the SNL cast their jobs. And the idea of that raises it a little, but it also then makes improv, which is inherently not competitive. Like, the whole idea of improv is like, we're all a team together. We're having each other's back. We're all in this together. Like, everything that we do is all of us all together. Like, we all get laughs or we all go down. Like, it doesn't matter. But then when it becomes, I don't know, I feel like this keeps coming out. Like, when you're getting paid for it, or when it's like, what shows are we gonna put on Saturday night? It's all about popularity and competition and this like idea of creating something that's, pulling this person out of there. And I mean, because who's to say that any one of the, new members of SNL who came from an improv background, fingers crossed, they did some sketch, right? Because if not, like, it's a different situation that you're about to do. And it's also highly competitive, especially in that particular show. But like, anybody, all of us are the people that want to move on to different kinds of work. If you go to work in any sort of let's say Hollywood, and it's not exactly, but you know what I mean? Like network paid jobs, you're working on one of the late night shows or something like that. It's all competitive. And you have to like have that skill as well as being open to the other part. So it's like, you need to be able to play with openness and kindness and share ideas in that way, but you kind of also have to have a thick skin if you want to move forward and do it in the professional realm. And I say that only because the people who are listening might be like, but there's a difference between doing an improv class like in your town, and especially if you live in, not New York or LA. New York or LA are still the places mostly where they're getting talent for television shows and movies, right? So if you're not in one of those places, you can probably have a nice time, do improv. Austin, great town for improv. One of the best in the world even, where just a great community. You can do lots of work. You can be in shows every night of the week if you want. There's just so much to be done. But for the people who are like, okay, but I want to take improv classes, and then I want to act in commercials, and then I want to develop, how do I get into movies? How do I get into TV shows? You got to get an agent. You got to compete with a bunch of people doing auditions, and then the competition comes back. So the unfortunate part is that, like, I want improv to be to be what we could do all the time, but unfortunately, in the commerce that is, Hollywood art or how to make money as an actor, you kind of have to use it as just another acting class, as a skill that you can use to develop. And hopefully, maybe something you can take away from it can be, auditioning could be easier for you. You could also accept when an audition doesn't go well, like, move forward, let it go. Next thing. There's those kinds of skills you can take away from it. But the unfortunate part is, like, if you want to be in a movie, if you want to be Beyonce, if you want to be, like Mindy Kaling, you got to work hard and you got to compete and you got to be like, this is why I'm better and this is why I'm great. Everybody else sucks. Check me out. And it's so it's so weird that all of this exists all at once, in the same industry.
Yeah, well, I think you nailed it when you said it's a skill. The truth is, like, improv is a starter skill. Like, everybody should do it. Everybody should try it. It's great if you get really good at it. Unfortunately, there are not facets for it to be your only thing. Like, I would love to see another Netflix show that is not Middleditch and Schwartz, but is other improvisers, and it's shot with 9 cameras and perfect sound. And I think part of the, like, improv being looked at a little bit like it's goofy or whatnot is that people don't see it. Like, they don't know what it is. Everybody knows what stand-up is. Everybody knows that SNL is sketch-based, is pre-written. I think improv is kind of taboo, and no hate on any other types of comedy. I think that's kind of where a misjudgment comes from, and why it's so hard to be competitive about this thing that is, you can't do alone also. Like, you can't be like, me and my troupe are going to audition together for this writing gig. And it's like, no, you spend years getting really, really good at working on a team, and then you have to break off and you have to take all that with you and be on your own, but you can't just wing it. Then you have to start putting those skills into writing it down, which it's wild, but I think that's what makes it cool. It stands a little bit on its own in my mind.
Yeah. So I'm thinking about how earlier you were mentioning the compartmentalization, so many interests, so many skills you've done, so many different things. How do you think you have put together all of the various adventures that you've had during your life? How do you think they're coming together for you now, and the skills that you've learned? How are they preparing you for the next effort that you're going to make as the conservatory director?
I think because I've been in a lot of scenes, and just because I've done a lot of improv, as far as it leading into the conservatory director, it's truly just because I have been, like I said, part of all those scenes, that I know how I would want to make people feel who are new to a community. And so for me, all that experience is just me trying to create a community that feels really open and really safe and really awesome for somebody new, or even somebody who is feeling like they kind of lost touch with everything after the pandemic. So, like, that's all for the conservatory. On the other side, for, like, just me, what I've boiled it down to is years of doing characters, knowing industry business, or the business of the industry, whatever you want to call it, and just having acting chops, I guess, is I'm obsessed with wanting to move in the voiceover route. I don't think I have maybe what it takes to be on TV or in a movie. I won't give up on that, but I personally, all of this has set me up to be able to be an absolute character all the time just by using one of my favorite tools, which is my voice. So that's where I would like to head.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
Does that answer your question, or did I go on a tangent?
No, you're good. No, my question was just kind of like about how you had digested your own life experiences and where you are right now. So I think that answered the question really perfectly. And I appreciate, you sharing this idea of wanting to get into voice acting. There's so many opportunities now, especially since it's like the coolest thing in the world these days to have books on tape. Sorry, I'm 1,000 years old. Audiobooks. and that that's a whole thing. Somewhere on some panel, some like podcasting panel that I was on a couple months ago, it was me and this other girl who was a voice actor for Audible, that she like does multiple books. And I was like, how is that a job? Like, when did you get that job? Like, oh my God,
it's not an easy job either.
It's wild and it's crazy. And it's like, the amount of effort that goes into it. I mean, I listen to those books, right? So I'm listening to them and I'm like, how is this person continuously talking? Like, and I get that they take breaks and there's like chapter breaks or whatever. They could probably have a sip of water. But like, there are people, I just listened to one where this guy did like 17 different voices and accents and stuff. And I was like,
love that.
What?
Yeah.
Like, you didn't have to do that, guy. Like, I appreciate it. It was helpful because there's 47 different people from 47 different countries. Helpful. But at the same time, I was like, dude, what extra effort you put in. Like,
yeah. And you read the whole thing without flubbing any of the words or eating any of the syllables. Like, it has to be absolute perfection. And you listen to it and you're like, this is great. And then you read a page of anything out loud and it's almost impossible. So it's not easy by any means.
I have gotten a taste of it myself. I have a 5-year-old and we have just started getting into chapter books. So, every night I read 1 to 2 chapters in a book out loud to him. And it's really helping. It's like to be able to like read out loud because I was like, realized how much when I read, I like just skip over entire sections, like sort of quickly. I get it. Like I was trying to make sure I was reading every single word because it's like, I don't know what happens in this story. This part could be the important part. Like, I gotta tell him. He can't read it, So, but man, it is so hard. You're right. I'm only reading 2 chapters a night. And I'm like, I finish and I'm like, ooh, I'm exhausted. Who does this? It's so, oh boy.
Right? I know, but it does get, just like anything, it gets easier. And also, I had another point, which I forgot, but, it does get easier. Oh, I've realized that you really just have to focus, which I think we don't do a lot when we read now because we skim. But if you just focus and make your brain meditate on what you're reading, it tends to help. But then, you'll be tired.
Yeah. Yeah, reading things aloud to my child. There was like storybooks that I read where I like thought I knew the story and I was like, wow, I did not realize that's what happened in this story. Oh, okay. Right. I clearly did not pay attention at all as I was reading this as a child, Yep. Like, whoa, this is pretty intense. Yeah. Plus, like, as far as like putting all the skills together where you were like, I have had experience, like I've seen your experience, seeing people in the industry, like knowing how to navigate, what a great skill for a conservatory director, because people are going to come to you and say like, hey, I want to do this. How does a person do that? Right. Mm-hmm. And so knowing how to do stuff like that is very helpful, but it's also very helpful when it comes to your own abilities and development of your own like audio skills, because where there might be different kinds of work, you might know how to get that work or at least how to prepare for that work. And it's like really helpful. Like before I knew how to get an audition, it was insane. And now I'm like, Oh, okay. All right. It seems a lot easier now that I've gotten through that veil. But it's like for so many of the students that, we encounter when we're, leading them, it's like they just started improv. They don't even know. They're like, wait, what do I do next? It's like, what do you want to do? And the beauty of this and the beauty of why I talk to you guys and everyone on this podcast is that there's so many things to do. There's like, whatever your skill is, like whatever you find yourself drawn to, like go for it. It's out there, right?
And the cool thing is, like, I feel like I know improv backwards, forwards, sideways, upside down. I don't know voiceover and like commercial work. And so I am like learning and failing all over again while I'm doing this. And it's exciting. I'm like, whoa, yeah, I get to like push my boundaries again and get out of my safe space and make some of the dumbest errors of all time. But it reminds me that like all that are good parts to when you start anything, especially improv. And like, I think that's why like all of it should just be based in enjoying as much as you can of it, because otherwise it will drive you crazy.
Yeah. I honestly think that the people who come back over and over, who, even though sometimes the world makes you take a year or two off from doing creative stuff, if you keep coming back, then, you have something inside of you that like needs to be constantly refined. Even though you're changing up the focus of the creative aspect that you're working on, you got improv, feel good about that. Well, what don't I know? Let's work on something else. It's still creative. It's still like developing new ideas. And it really like, just exercises the skills both that you have and you have locked down, but the ones that are like dormant, waiting inside of you to like come out and, burst forth like a flower, Yeah,
100%.
So I'm going to ask you one final question. I appreciate all of this time, all this wonderful chatting. I feel deeply empowered myself. I hope that the people that are listening are feeling empowered. Whatever your path is, go for it. And even if you were like, wait, I keep doing this kind of job, do I even like it? Are you great at it? Maybe you are great at it. Maybe they need you, right? Yeah. But what is it that you do personally for yourself to fill up your own creative cup?
Personally for myself, to fill up my own creative cup. Oof.
I appreciate if you do nothing, because I understand. Admins have a hard time replenishing. We give out, we don't do a lot of taking in. So like the look on your face when I ask you that question, you're like, do I have a cup? I don't. I'm
like, what don't I do? And then I'm like, but none of it, does any of it serve me? Yeah, one of the biggest, coolest things is a friend and I started a show at the when the pandemic was, I guess, ending, or so they said. I don't know.
Sure.
And that show is based in rallying the community and having a new cast of improvisers play every Saturday night. And that fills my cup in the way that also Conservatory Director will, which is sharing an awesome show slot and playing with people who might not have had a lot of playtime or who aren't used to playing with people they don't play with. And there I get to be my goofy self and have a good time, but also make sure other people are having a good time and are feeling safe on stage. So that's definitely a big one. Non-comedy related, I fill my cup a lot with just nature, my dog, being outside and eating good food.
Yeah. No, that's helpful. And Austin, we got some sweet nature. Like, absolutely. We can check it out for many more months than the rest of the people. So, yeah, we got some. And if you got a dog, ooh, Austin loves a dog, right? Yeah. This town's probably embracing everything you got going on.
Yeah, this is the city that has the most what I've been looking for from a city. So, yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Plus, I love the idea that you and your sweet little kind heart are like, the way that I feel the best is by giving other people opportunities. Oh, girl, you are so right for this job. Like, oh, man.
I'm going to try my best.
Oh, you don't even have to, man. It's in you. It's like part of your DNA. Clearly this has been something you've been developing for many years, and I'm hoping there's a moment when you're doing something that's wild or just in an admin wild way. Like, I don't know. There's, you know what I mean.
Rip it through a spreadsheet.
Exactly.
Yes. Just blowing up some Excels.
I just knew. I knew you'd
Scheduling 6 shows at once. Yeah.
Making sure. Yeah, that's right. 6 different people get into a class. Nailed it. Mm-hmm. Oh man. Just the idea that you're like excited about that and that you care about the community and you want to like make them better in a town, which I already tell everyone is a magical wonderland and is definitely a magical wonderland for improv. To have you there in a leadership role. Chef's kiss. Exactly perfect. Good job, Fallout. You did a wonderful job hiring a new conservatory director.
Oh, well, thank you. That's very kind. And I will do everything I can to uphold that standard and hopefully get everybody back in here and reinvigorated and to make sure no one ever feels left out or lost or, like they can't. So I appreciate that. Yeah. We'll see how it goes. And I'll keep doing all the funny stuff too, hopefully.
Yeah, right? Mm-hmm. Who knows, man? A year from now, you get 150 people in brand new classes and you're the wacky fun character on a new cartoon. Who knows?
God, that would be sick. Heard it here first. You said it. Let's do it.
Hey, I'm telling you, I don't mean to be like crazy crystal lady, but I'm going to be crazy crystal lady, which is right now we are in a new moon and it's a perfect time to manifest. So okay. I know that everything that I just said sounds like a bunch of gobbledygook from the new age, but I'm telling you, write down these goals that we're just talking about, like what you want. And I truly believe that in like a year, maybe year and a half, these things will manifest for you. You clearly have this hardworking vibe. You're like, heart is in it. And I mean, I've seen people who don't care go through classes and just do whatever. And maybe they're in a show here and there, but the people who care, and I can see you caring, people who care get the most out of it because that's your heart is the first part of being part of an improv community. For sure.
Well, I appreciate it. And I am going to write that down. And I do feel like, I think it's a turtle in the hare situation. I'm for sure the turtle. But I'm hoping that I come in strong there at the end. So yes, I'll win it somehow for me, whatever that means. But slow and steady. I'm just chugging along, trying to make it fun.
Yeah. Oh, man. Well, this has been very fun. Thank you, Maddie, so much for being on the podcast. It's been really great to chat with you. I feel like a great journey with you.
Back at you. I really appreciate you and glad that you get to have these types of conversations because it's important.
Absolutely. And if you ever have a new student who's like, but what kind of paths are there? Send them to me and to listen to this podcast. My whole point was to make sure that students actually at that space knew that there were various hundreds of different options. And now that I've connected with all over Europe, guys, the people who are listening this far already know all of this, but guys, Austin loves visitors from other countries. Come teach workshops with us, and improvisers that are in Austin, all the rest of the world thinks we're cool. Go with it. No, I'm not kidding. Austin is like a town that like all over the world, people are like, oh yeah, that's a great improv town. In this country, New York and LA get all the credit, but Europe knows.
Europe knows.
Europe knows.
I also happen to know somebody who runs a show on Saturday nights that anybody can play in. So come on down.
That's right. That's right. Oh, I got to write that down. Make sure we put that link in so that everybody can perform on Saturday nights at Fallout. Wow, what a slot. I tried to get that for years, never got it. But that's okay, because now you can. Maddie's opened it up to everyone.
Yeah, I couldn't sit on that gemstone alone. I had to share it.
Oh my goodness. Well, thank you. I appreciate you being with me.
Thank you. Back at you. This was a blast.
Thank you for listening to Yes But Why podcast. Check out all of our episodes on yesbutwhypodcast.com or check out all the content on our network, HC Universal, at hcuniversalnetwork.com.